And now, 5-Star Properties and Pod Slamma Jamma present Let's Rage Coogs, streaming on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel.
Welcome into another edition of Let's Raise Coogs. Dayon Dunlap, Chris Gardner, and Aqib Gazi. Man, I mean, where do we start? I mean, final score, 48-30. Houston falls to another Big 12 foe, Kansas, at home opener. And honestly, it was ugly. Where should we start? Who would like to take the reins first?
I could go first, man.
No, I thought, man, we actually had a great start. We started off 2 touchdowns, 14-0. And then once we threw Clayton Tune threw that pick, all hell went loose. I think they had scored 4 touchdowns in a row after that. And then from there on, I just felt like whether it was the offense or defense, nothing was clicking. Like it was all bad everywhere.
And let me chime in, Dan, if I can, man. The biggest disappointment today, the defense got gashed, man. I mean, Kansas is legit, apparently, because they just gashed QB Daniels. He did whatever he wanted to, running the ball, passing the ball. What did they score? 6 straight touchdown drives after trailing 14-0. The Coogs had no answer for the Jayhawks. And who'd have thought that, man? Who'd have thought something like that would happen? I mean, KU's offense really impressed me, and the Coogs defense just looks really, really confused and disjointed. And I'm beginning to wonder, is it talent, coaching, lack of talent, lack of coaching? I don't know. What is it, Dan? What do you think, man?
Man, for me, the most disappointing thing, it wasn't the defense. I know the defense was disappointing, but the most for me was the quarterback. I mean, 5th-year quarterback, that pick that he had really turned the game. It was 14-0. If I'm not mistaken, you throw that pick and Kansas
14-7.
Oh, 14-7.
Yeah.
Okay, it was 14-7. You go up 14-0, then Kansas answered, then you throw the pick, and then they score 6 straight possessions. But for me personally, like on our last Pod Slamma Jamma episode, I bought into the hype.
Taken out of the game by his teammates. That's gonna if that ended up costing Houston.
Sorry, those. Yeah, I bought into the hype. I was hype on Clayton Tune, how he ended the season, how he played the second half against Texas Tech. I was literally bought into the hype. And then the last 2 games I expected more, I should say. And from times him holding the ball. Okay, who was getting pressure? I give him that. He was getting pressure, having to extend plays. But there's time he's holding the ball. And Coach Belk said over the summer how now he's throwing players open. It's not always going to be pretty line up your first read, second read. Sometimes you got to make good throws that defense can't defend. And I haven't seen that from a 6-year senior quarterback. Running game was decent. They started off really well. Both running backs played well. The passing game has just been non-existent. I mean, I don't know what it is. They're just having to scheme up passing plays. No one seems to be getting open. I know Tank is NFL talent for sure, but so I'm not going to say it's the receiver, it's the position. I don't know what it is from an offensive perspective. Defense, I think it's nutrition. I mean, they had played a lot, and then they've played 3 straight quarterbacks who can extend plays. This one, without a doubt, was the best one. Jalen Daniels, I think, is the real deal. He's been consistent throughout this couple of years, but for me, the disappointment was offense and the quarterback play.
Aqib?
Yeah, definitely that for sure. And of course, like O-line, there's a problem there. I have a friend who's on the coaching staff. I'm not going to name any names, but he said definitely the O-line, there's some youth there that, they need to coach them up for sure. But then Clayton Tune, just like Dayon said, like 50-year senior quarterback, like it doesn't make sense that it feels like he's just folding under the pressure, and sometimes he's able to extend those plays, but at the same time, like the broadcast had mentioned that he's 5th in all of college football in most consecutive starts, I think with like 34. So that's not showing from, just from watching him play these last 2 games. The UTSA game, he put the team on his back and he was doing some Clayton Tune stuff, as we would say, just because of how he's played over the last year or two. These last 2 games.
What about from a Big 12's perspective? They were hyping up this game, but this is our invitation to showcase like the Big 12. This is our first home game against the Big 12. Then you lose back-to-back games to teams who are in the bottom of the barrel in the Big 12, teams who are not in the upper echelon. So what does that say to Houston football program specifically about next year and years to come about joining the Big 12, in your guys' opinion?
Well, to me, it says that the program isn't ready for the Big 12 to compete in the Big 12, let alone compete in the middle of the Big 12. I'm not even considering the top tier of the Big 12. Yeah. UH is not ready for the middle tier of the Big 12, and that's coaching, that's talent, that's administration, and I hope we get some fans who are at TDECU Stadium today to chime in with comments to let us know about the experience, because I think we saw it on Twitter about the delays fans had getting into the stadium, the problem that concessions, I don't know if it was understaffed, not enough staffing there or what, but Dan, you and I have had this talk. Houston has talked about for a long time wanting to be a big-time program. Well, you don't act like a big-time program. I'm talking about administration, not just on the field, on the court. If there were problems with fans getting into the stadium, that's not a big-time program. You got to. We're not expecting a large crowd. You wanted a large crowd for this game, as Deion said. They were hyping it up as a Big 12 preview, all those kind of things, and then you do a piss poor job of having fans, tickets, and concessions, and all those things. This is not a big-time program. As an alum, I'm an alum. If folks who are not used to seeing my face on these or hearing my voice, I'm an alum. So we have to do better. We can talk a good game.
Yep.
We talk with the best of them. Well, it's past time for us to put up or shut up. We want to be a big-time program. Act like a big-time program. Chris Chesman, etc. Go ahead, Aqib.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like even through last year when the news came out that we were going to join the Big 12, we had some great wins. We had a good season, but at the same time, I still didn't, feel that, at least not from the football team's perspective that we were like at that level just yet. For basketball, whole different case. Like Coach Sampson and what his staff has done, like from day one, they were already thinking 10 steps ahead, like that this is the program we're going to build and these are the teams we're going to compete with. But it has not. It's been the opposite case with regards to the football program. And even going back to last season, we lost to Tech. That's a game that we were supposed to show, that we are a Big 12 team. And then we play them again this year, and we had many opportunities to win that game, and we didn't show it. So, and then we didn't show it tonight against, a Kansas team that, they're off to a good start. They're 3-0, but at the same time, they have not historically, or at least not recently, they've been that team in the Big 12 to compete for championships.
For sure. And before we continue, I would like to let you guys know that this show is sponsored by Five Star Properties, a Dallas-based company owned by a UH alum. If you're facing foreclosures or need to sell a home as is for cash, call 972-532-SELL or visit their website, 5starprops.com. That's 5starprops.com. And I want to touch upon your other point, Chris, really about from an administrative perspective. They put out an email showing different renovations or things that they're changing, whether it's food, whether it's a lot of different things. And one thing that I saw that they're doing also is new. They're having a student ambassador. And from when I was in undergrad, my first, I would say 2 years, all you had to do was show the student ID to get in free. And now they claim a certain amount of student tickets, in which I think that regresses, because you should want students to be able to get in free. I mean, we know how fickle the Houston crowd is in regards, especially coming off a loss to Texas Tech. And when you got 6,000 already claimed student tickets, now students are pursuing more. You're having to release more. Why not go back to the old system? Allow students to show their ID if you want to the crowd, and then you get to the concession stand. You got big names like Turkey Leg Hut, who is not affiliated or having their concession stand anymore. Different things, little things that, like Chris says, that's administrative, go a long way to being a big program, or ready to be a big time program in the major power conference. And so, I mean, it's a lot that has to be done, but strictly from a sporting perspective, these last 2 weeks, I'm not gonna lie, I was bought into the hype over the last year with the way the schedule rolled in. I really thought that the team was taking the next step to not be in that bottom tier. Because I said this on the last podcast, it's tiers in college football. It's the upper tiers class who's competing every year to win their conference and to be in the college football. Then it's the middle and the lower tier. I was thinking like Cincinnati, for example, who the last couple of years removed themselves from that bottom tier. It was like up in the mid tier, to almost crossing that top, but they're competing year in and year out to be conference champions. They lost to an Arkansas team who's a really good team now. And so I thought Houston was turning that edge, but over these last couple of weeks, I think I see who they are and where they are. What's you guys' perspective on where the program is? Does it need another shakeup? I don't think so, because that takes the program back a couple of years once you do, and let you get a coach in there that can light it up immediately. But I mean, what's the next step? What from here? I mean, people's already clamoring. We got comments. So we're basketball season already here. What's the football program to do?
I want to go first, because the frustration is already here after just 3 games. And the team after week 1, Aqib said it. Clayton Tune looked great after game 1. He looked Superman after the first game. These last 2 games, he has not looked good, let alone great. And Texas Tech, Kansas, these are not football powers that the Cougs are struggling against. So it's just, I did not buy into the hype. I was more show me this season, prove it to me kind of thing. Last year's schedule was pretty easy. The bowl win over Auburn was nice, but Auburn wasn't a great Shakes team either. It was good that they were a team from the SEC, so that looks good. But coming into this season, many of us figured, well, game against UTSA would be a win. Should be difficult. No shade on UTSA, but okay. It was more difficult than we all thought it would be. We circled Texas Tech as a game to show where the Cougs are. They lost. 4th and 20, gave up first down on 4th and 20. The defense had a lead in that game and blew it. Now today, Coach Hogan said on Monday at his press conference, at his session, this Kansas team is not the Kansas team of old, previous year. This is not the same Kansas team. Offensively, Coach Hogan said this KU team does things he had not seen before. Well, we saw it today. Kansas offense is a problem. So it's just, none of us, I don't believe anybody here, except the biggest Dana Hogerson haters, thought the Cougs would be 1-2 after these 3 games this season. I didn't think they would. I thought they would win today. I would not be shocked if they lost. I'm shocked they got trucked. Kansas dominated the Cougs today, and that surprised me.
Yeah, and of course, it came down to like how they played. But Chris and Deon, what shocked me today was what I saw progressing on the sideline with regards to I think it was Sam Brown and Manjack, the shoving. And players get heated amongst each other. Things happen on the sideline, but it looked very heated. Like Manjack came to the sideline and shoved Sam Brown very hard. And that's when I thought, okay, we're in deep waters right now when it comes to this program. What's going on? And So that was like just where everything culminated for me, and I was like, this is not it right now.
That was a bad look. My fault, Dayon. That was a bad look because it was on TV.
Yeah.
You know, the cameras caught it. So that kind of makes you wonder, man, how bad is it in practice? Is it worse in the locker room? Is there a problem going on in the locker room? Because this was for everybody to see who watching on TV. Go ahead, Dayon.
Yeah, no, I was just going to kind of comment. For me, I don't think that's really much. I think that's just players competing. Of course, you don't want to see players arguing and shoving each other, but we see that all the time on all levels, and players, competitive juice and emotions getting the best of them. And I kind of like that from a leadership perspective. It's holding your teammate accountable. Of course, you don't want to take it over the edge, but I like the emotion and that they cared in that. And so I didn't say, I know it is a bad look. I agree with you guys, but I think it could be overblown as far as maybe, I don't know. I'm just trying to be optimistic about it, I would say.
Yeah, I think it was just the fact that when it happened in the point of the game where it was like a very low point, and like, of course, I mean, if anyone that watches sports, you see teammates yell at each other all the time, and like it gets very heated. But then at that point in the game where like people need to just chill out more and like start leaning on each other and trusting each other, it was just for sure a bad look. And that kind of summed up, you know, the season thus far for me.
What about from an offensive play calling perspective, or lack thereof? Do you guys feel like Houston is limiting themselves, or is the offensive line not getting Clayton Tune enough time? Is it the receivers not getting open? What's plaguing the offense from really clicking? They got those first two drives, but other than that, throughout the first three games, they've really been sputtering offense.
All of that. At times, the offensive line has not been good consistently at all. What happened to the tight end?
Yeah.
What happened to that option in the offense?
Yep.
The running backs did pretty well today.
Yeah.
You know, Alton McCaskill being out. Running game has not been a huge issue. I mean, that's the thing about the O-line. They have been consistent because sometimes they run block great.
Yep.
First two games, they didn't run block well at all.
No.
And then pass protection today was not very good. I mean, as the game wound down, Kansas had 4 sacks on Tune today. Sack Avenue for Houston, 0 sacks. No one would have thought that going into the game. So that was an issue. This team, the Coogs, are just not playing well consistently long enough to be a winning team. They're 1-2 now.
Yeah, the O-line it's a big problem, and of course Clayton Tune, he's probably bringing a little bit on himself too. But at the same time, I have a friend who's on the coaching staff who had mentioned. I asked him, like, you know, hey, what's going on in practice? Like, how are the players resolving the issues, and what's like the main issue with this team, like especially with the offense? Why are we being so conservative? And he just said the only thing he was able to tell me was just the O-line being inconsistent. And like when that's coming from your own, you know, coaching staff, that the O-line's a big problem, they're not hiding anything. So it's just, to me, it starts with the O-line, and then of course the play calling as well. But then it's just like everything coming together, the O-line, and then the play calling is very reserved. You see, it's getting very predictable. Like first and second down, it's most likely going to be like a run or a check down. And then third down, then we probably try to throw it deep if we're third and long. It's just it's getting to like this old Texans offense that we've probably been used to seeing, you know, the last couple of years. But that's what it's getting to, which is not ideal of how Holgorsen runs an offense. So I'm just that's what's been concerning to me.
Got a lot of comments rolling in before we continue to talk, because I got a question for you guys. Right, Aqib, as he just mentioned, Holgorsen in offense. But before I ask you that, if you're facing a foreclosure or want to sell fast, visit 5starprops.com. That's 5starprops.com. They're a Dallas-based company owned by a UH alum, and they're sponsoring Let's Rage Coogs. So if you other sponsors out there want to sponsor us, please contact us. Please do so. But that was a good point you brought up about Holgorsen and his offense. as an offensive mind, as he's known, would you guys expect or want him to take over more of the play calling and handle some of that, or is it just let the offense be what they are?
Well, for right now, what's happened these first 3 games hasn't worked. So if Dana Holgorsen calling the plays himself fixes the problem, he needs to do it because what they've been doing has not worked. So, they play Rice and fellas. Let's be honest. We're being 1-2 now. The game against Rice next Saturday, it might be us on this YouTube and Twitter watching the game in the state, and that's it. There might not be anybody at that game because of the fickle nature of UH Cougar fans.
I want to say this real quick about, the fans and stuff. Of course, we got to show up, but we're not at that stage yet where I feel like, we're technically not Big 12 yet, right? Officially.
Correct.
We haven't. So before we even get into that, like, the fans got to show up. At the same time, we have to win these games. Like, if we're not winning these games, and if I'm not saying that, the fans only should show up if we're winning. I'm not saying that. But the way these last 2 games have gone, like, it's almost a question of, like, what are they getting? I guess what are they going to get happy for in the future? Like, are they where's the excitement coming in? So we can't always fully blame the fans at the same time, but the team has to just show up and play better.
And it's an issue because I think you guys get it on Twitter as well in the replies to some tweets and stuff. UH fans, football fans, are almost fed up with the team already. Three games in, they're done.
Yeah.
When is basketball season started? Fire Dana. This is trash. This undisciplined. This bad. All these things. It's just 3 games in. So I agree with you, Aqib. But it really, I guess, it's kind of interesting to see how short a rope that the fans gave this team apparently, because either they had unrealistic expectations or something, because they're like, forget this team now. Whatever. When does basketball start? And just in case I don't know, first practice should be about 10 days from now on 27th. Just so y'all know that.
Yeah, we got a comment that says it seems like the O-line has been an excuse since the Major Applewhite days. Got to be something else wrong. It's an interesting comment. I don't know. The offensive line definitely is a problem, but let's shift a little bit more to the defense. And like Chris said, that was one of the major things that stuck out to him, especially for me last week against Texas Tech. And when you go up that 4th and 20, I knew the game was over after that. I just knew there's no way it's your day when you do that. But this week, you go up 2 scores, and then you just really have trouble stopping. Is it the lack of talent? In my opinion, I can definitely tell we missed those 2 NFL players in the secondary. Without a doubt, Pepe Williams and Marcus Jones. We missed those 2 in the secondary. But what's your guys' opinion on the defense? The defensive line definitely is missing Logan Hall as well, I would say, in the middle. Mm-hmm. But from the defensive perspective, what is it? Is it coaching? It's the same philosophy. They're rolling players in and out, trying to keep them fresh. What is it?
Aqib, you go ahead, because I want to just go about the fan comment.
I think it just goes back to fundamentals, like that, and that goes back to coaching at the same time. But like, how many tackles all the way dating back to this UTSA game are they missing? Like today, the quarterback has probably broke 10 plus tackles, a quarterback.
Yeah.
And this is tackles from D-line. The D-line is missing tackles, which is like, that's even to me more inexcusable. Like you'll see DBs, corners, safeties, like they miss tackles here and there. They might not be the biggest guys, so players bounce off of them. But when you have D-line, like grabbing a hold of the quarterback and like not being able to secure a tackle, like that's a big problem to me. And you have guys like Derek Parrish, where it's like he had an amazing game last week, but then it felt like he just didn't show up this week. I didn't really see him on the stat sheet, in regards to the
sacks. Yeah,
there were no sacks. Yeah. So it's just now it's boiling down to like everybody needing to, pitch in and get, get tackles, get sacks, whatever it is.
Dan made a great point about up the middle. I think the Cougs on the defensive tackles are doing a solid job. But in the middle, the interior of the defense, the line, linebackers, secondary, just not good. Just not been good enough this year so far, these first 3 games. And that's out of position, missing tackles, lack of discipline on some of the penalties. It all adds up. And part of that, that's coaching.
The secondary seem confused, Chris. Like whenever I'm watching them play, they don't know who to cover. So
and that's coaching. That has to be coaching, because if the secondary is confused, either they're not getting it in the video film room, practice, and if they're still making the same mistakes, play somebody who gets it. Because you're right. They look lost at times in these first 3 games, and it's the main reason why the Cougs 1-2.
So I know they can still win the American Conference, but at this point is the season. I don't. It's only 3 games in, so it's not. I'm not going to say it's a wash. I know from the fans are already done with Houston, but just from the players' perspective, or coaching perspective, I mean, you can be right. Whoop-de-doo. But after that, I mean, at what point would you consider going with your younger quarterback to see what you have for the future?
Probably toward the end of the season, or if the season, if they go underwater. They should beat Rice, be 2-2, and then start conference play. The game against Tulane, that's going to be a problem. So a lot of us said once conference play started, the Cougs will be favored in all their conference games. I'm not sure about that anymore. How many of them will the Cougs be favored in? Besides like Navy, you know what I'm saying? And Temple. Because Tulane's pretty good, SMU's good, Memphis. And where the Cougs are playing, what reason do we have to believe that they're going to get better once conference play starts? And you start to pile up with the running backs. The O-line still has given us no reason to believe they have to have confidence in them. So I don't know.
Yeah. And Chris, this is a schedule where you don't play UCF or Cincinnati. And
for
now
the second year in a row.
For the second year in a row. And now you're still looking at this schedule like, oh man, who are we gonna actually beat? Like, are we even gonna secure a bowl game at this point? Like, I mean, those are legitimate questions. Like, you can't think in your head that like, oh no, we'll be fine from here on out. Even though we're 1-2, we're gonna wash, the American Conference. Like, we can't even be thinking like that. Now it's just gonna be like one snap at a time at this point. You can't really think too far ahead anymore.
And I'm gonna read this quote from Derek Parrish. We still have everything that we want in front of us, and that is a conference championship, end quote. Technically, that's true. But, damn, you pulled up a comment from a fan. I mean, this one starts it. It's a shame because as fans, we really want to believe in this team this season. It's probably looking bad in 3 straight games. And that's part of it. The fans, a lot of fans were hyped for the start of football season. And the team has underperformed, underachieved, not gotten it done. For whatever reason, they're 1-2. And the city of Houston is already fickle, fair weather fans anyway. So the team being 1-2 does not inspire huge home crowds for the rest of the Cougs football season.
Yeah, it doesn't. And so I'm wondering, how do you rebuild momentum? I mean, you had the momentum that you were riding from last year in the bowl game, the momentum from UTSA, who is playing Texas well and is up 17-7 against Texas right now. But I also want to give credit to this Kansas team.
Yes.
I think we're looking at the name. Well, me included, a lot of people looked at the name. It was like, oh, this is Kansas. But they have some athletes out there, especially with their quarterback. And their coaching, I will say, in my opinion, from what I watched, they out-coached Houston today.
Agreed.
From the way that they schemed players open, kept players first, and just what they did to scheme. It wasn't as if they were just better, just telling you watch the game like, oh, they're just better. They did call good plays to get their athletes in favorable matchups to win. And so At what point does Houston build? How do they rebuild momentum with all three of us knowing how the Houston fan base is in regards to Houston Cougars football?
I don't believe they can. I think in terms of the fan support this season, going undefeated in the American would help. But even then, some fans will say, "Yeah, but who did they beat?" You know, they could go undefeated in the regular season, get to the conference championship game, and lose to the Bearcats. Fans would be like, "See, you know." I mean, so they beat a bunch of iffy teams that they played another good team and lost. That's where the fans are. That's where the football team is. So the rest of this season, I'm not sure they can do anything to get back some of the fans who've been disappointed these first 3 games.
Yeah, last season it was just a matter of, you know, they had that one loss to Texas Tech, but then they kind of showed everyone that they could bounce back from that loss, and then they had a bunch of very good wins, you know, strung together. But then you already have 2 back-to-back losses, and then it's not like you're playing some of the best teams out there, you know, in the country. So to me, I agree with you, Chris. It's going to be difficult, you know, to get that, you know, the fans back on the side of the Cougars. But and then just be based off of like our history of, you know, fans not really showing up completely. You know, we're not selling out the arena, obviously, with football. So it's going to be difficult.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we
sir.
can hear you, Andy.
And there we go. We are live from TDECU Stadium, where you can see me in the background. I got this figured out. Boy, I just got out of the post-game availability with Dana Holgorsen and the players. The video is up. Dayon, Chris, I don't know if you guys have been able to play it, but boy, the very interesting post-game availability. And Dayon, Chris, can you guys see the video? We can play that clip.
Yeah, we can play. Before we get into it, let's take a quick commercial break, and then we'll get right into the video.
Thank you for calling Star Pizza. This is Tim. How may I help you?
This is D.A. Jones. I'm calling to order some pizza.
Hey, Mr. Jones. Same order as last time?
Same order as last time.
Okay, and the delivery address?
Man, we over on Sac Ave.
Sac Avenue? Let me see if we even deliver there.
We right here on your map.
All right, we'll see you in about 45 minutes to an hour.
Hurry up. We hungry. I'm hungry, man. We eat the best pizza on Sac Ave.
I'm okay, though.
So there we go. I'm still messing with it, but let's go ahead and let's get into the clip, and James and I will hop on the other side after.
They're as good as advertised. I mean, offensively, we didn't tackle the quarterback once. We didn't stop them once after the first 2 drives. I mean, not pointing the finger on the defense. I mean, offense should have scored more, and they didn't. There's plenty of blame to go around. I got out-coached. He's a heck of a football coach. You know, we got out-coached offensively, defensively. I take it. You know, we got a lot of work to do. I mean, everybody's excited about transition. Everybody's excited about the future. I've done this before. It didn't take like an off season to get Big 12 Power 5 ready. It doesn't. Can we hang in there if we prove that where we hang in there and can compete with those guys? Yeah. Can we do it every week right now? No. Clearly couldn't from last week to this week. We've had 3 hard fought games in a row. Not going to blame the schedule. It's just where it's what the future is going to be, and we have got a lot of work to do as a program to where we're going to be able to handle this every week. Nothing that happened out there surprises me. I mean, I don't think we played very good. It's on me.
Is it just a matter of having there's a certain type of player when it comes to recruiting, getting that roster. I mean, is that sort of part of the issue when your roster as it is now versus a couple of years down the road to get? Is that part of the solution, or is that part of the equation to get Big 12 ready?
Do you think? Yeah, need better players. And we're headed there. I mean, we got guys in this program that are, 2, 3, 4 years from now are going to be a lot different than what they are right now. I mean, I'm proud of our team. We fight, down 14 again at halftime. We go out there and we fight our tail off, and it just didn't happen tonight. We couldn't get stops. We couldn't get any breaks. We couldn't get any big plays. Just didn't have enough, and again, it's 3 weeks in a row. We're going toe to toe with some pretty good teams that, what's got, I don't know, a whole bunch of stuff's got to change, man. I mean, we got to coach better. We got to somehow figure out how to stop that offense because we didn't stop them. We got to score more. But at the end of the day, there's a lot going on. Put it on me.
With one more non-conference game to go in Rice before you guys start conference play, is there any consideration of maybe changing things up, whether it be a routine like how you guys approach games or anything, just to try to get out of this funk that you guys have had in the past two games?
No.
Dana, getting the start you wanted, I mean, does that make it, sort of even more frustrating? Was there something that changed?
No. They don't panic. They're a good team. Same thing happened to them last week in Morgantown. They got down and they play. I mean their head coach who outcoached me, he's got their team's attention to where they got some confidence and they're hot and they it's a long game. I mean I talked all week about how this was going to be a 4-quarter game. Got to keep playing, which we did. We just didn't play as well as they did in the second half. I mean, we knew they weren't going away. I was happy with the fast start. I mean, people have been griping they've been griping about us not being able to start fast and do something different, coach. And, well, we started fast, okay, but that doesn't mean that the game was over just because it was 14-0. Give Kansas some credit. They're pretty resilient.
So, like you hear there from the comments from Dana Holgerson, very interesting. And the reason I said it was the interesting thing is that the question towards the middle there, where I asked him if he was planning to make any changes, albeit I probably should have grilled more, but in terms of routine or just anything in general, he kept it straight, short and simple, straight to the point. He said no, which it's going to be interesting because they have one non-conference game left, and it is Rice. Now, we said that about Kansas heading into it, and Kansas came in here and put up 48 points on Houston Cougars. So I don't think there's such thing as a gimme game. But when you look at the fan base, they're at a point where they're frustrated, and I'm sure it's been mentioned before, but Houston is now 0-4 against Big 12 opponents under Dana Holgerson.
If I can jump in there quick, one of the things that stood out to me that we were talking about was how, in our opinions, he got out coached, and that's one of the first things he said.
Yeah.
So I will give credit under his leadership. He's been honest and critical of himself and the coaching staff whenever they haven't coached well. And it's easy to say that, but what is going to be done to fix it? I mean, that was one of the first things that stood out to me about his entire press conference.
Well, one thing, let me chime in quickly. He said we got to get better players. I mean,
well,
that's pretty blunt. we got to get better players.
I'll caveat that by saying he was directly asked about just in terms of once they do get better players, better recruits in, if that would change. So he was asked directly about it, but you're right, that's something point blunt. He's pretty blunt about it.
Yeah, I actually have a problem with like the way he said it. There's things like you can't, shy away from questions like that. But like just in the manner in which he said it, like he didn't highlight any of his current players. So if I'm a current player and I'm listening to that post-game press conference, I'm gonna have a problem with that just because I'm gonna feel like my game is not good enough for this team. So I think Dana has to just do a little better job. Like, I'm not saying not to lie and like not be truthful, but there are ways to like pose your answers. You got to be more PC when it comes to like questions like that and answers. Like you're a head coach, you know, you can't. Sometimes you can be blunt about certain things, but that's one thing you can. And then the answer he gave to, I think that Andy, you asked the question, right? About what can they change, and his simple answer was no, nothing. To me, is like, no, I'm sure there are things like you can change up even in routine to help fix it. So like if you keep on practicing the same way, like how are you gonna win games? Like it doesn't make sense to me at all. So I had a problem with that.
I agree with you guys. Before I'm gonna have to go because I didn't know the game was gonna have a delay. But real quick before I go and we get into James, I agree with you guys. And to counter that, I like how he held himself accountable, but I agree with you guys 100%. You don't say we need better players. That definitely undermines the players you have on your talent, the players you transfer that you brought in. I mean, why not keep holding yourself accountable and putting it on yourself? That's what coaches, in my opinion, that are good routinely do that. They hold their players accountable, but they don't come out and say we need better players. Maybe it's better coaching. But I'm gonna have to jump off, you guys. Appreciate all our fans and our sponsors for sure.
Man, down before you hop off, just appreciate for being able to take the reins of this while I was gone in the press conference. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, man, and congrats, man, on the gig.
Still go Coogs.
Yes, sir. Always.
And James, I know you haven't been able to speak, so I'll toss it over to you. Is there anything you'd like to add about the Dana Holgorsen takeaways? I think for me, the comment that stood out the most is Derek Parrish. And he was the one that, I mean, like you credit, he's a senior, he's one of the leaders on the defense, and he said it. Hey, that he asked, this is the turning point in the season. Can things go off the rails? And he said, every goal that we still have is right in front of us. Their goal is to win the American Athletic Conference Championship. So I think that was a really strong answer from Derek Parrish. James, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that answer from Parrish stood out to me. Of course, they also, most of the players, when we talked to them preseason, said a New Year's Six bowl, so that goal's probably out the window. Yeah, I mean, I did like, how he was confident, how saying, this isn't our American League record. Yes, maybe these non-conference losses might hurt us in terms of being able to host the conference championship if UH is to get to there. They've got a long way to go to get there. But yeah, that stood out. And then in terms of Dana's comments, I mean, my biggest thing was y'all hit on most of the things, but his response to your question about changing things, like that's been the problem is the other teams have made adjustments. UH hasn't. UH couldn't have scripted a better start. 2 straight 3-and-outs on defense, 2 scores on offense. Kansas makes adjustments. UH can't stop them the rest of the game, and the offense is very inconsistent. Same thing against Texas Tech and UTSA. They just haven't made those in-game adjustments and changes, and you can't expect results to change if you're not going to, make some changes. When the other teams are making changes and it's paying off for them. So you got to find something different because what they're doing currently isn't going to get you very far throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, one of the definitions of insanity when you do something over and over again and expect a different result. But real quickly, before we toss it over to what Tajon Henry had to say, we also have to give props to our primary sponsor, 5 Star Properties, as you see on the screen in the Dallas area, a business owned by UH alum. And I'd like to remind you that if you are in the Dallas area and you're looking to sell your home for cash as is, be sure to contact our guys at www.5starprops.com. That's 972-532-SELL. Or if you want the number version, that's 7355. Once again, 5 Star Properties. They'll take your house for cash as is. Once again, that's 5starproperties.com. Chris, Aqib, when it comes to this game, and we had mentioned on Post Talking Sports what would kind of be the worst case scenario, and I think it's played out, Chris. To be quite frank, and James, I'm curious to get your thoughts on it as well. For a game that started off so good with the early 14-0 lead, it looked like all the players, everything they had said, had come to fruition. There was talk. Doug, I believe, was the one that said it, that the Houston defense was pissed off heading into this matchup, and lo and behold, to start the game, they forced Kansas, a high-powered Kansas offense, to two straight 3-and-outs to start the game, and that leads to Houston putting points on the board, and they were doing it with a lot of creativity. I believe Brandon Campbell and Tajon Henry were the ones that scored the first touchdowns of the game for Houston, and Tajon Henry, someone that had been dealing with injuries the first 2 games. The crowd was rocking, and then off the 9-play drive that led to the first Kansas touchdown, it seemed like Houston could never recover. Then Clayton Tune threw the interceptions on the following play, and then honestly the train continued to derail off the tracks. But it seemed like it could have been, at least from the fan base, it was a turning point, just in terms of when Kansas continued to score, and there was a chorus of boos. But James, what was your feel for the game? And I think really the fight on the sidelines, I know Dana Holgorsen kind of gave more specifics about that, but that kind of seemed once again last week when Jace Rogers and Hassan Hippolyte tackled each other, that was kind of a showing of how the game had gone. I think the fight there on the sidelines is probably one that kind of summarized this game and just the way it went.
Yeah, I mean, entering the game, the first 10 minutes, I was feeling real good about my pick I made on Focus Talking Sports. Yeah, guaranteed UH would cover the spread. I think my final score had them winning by like 17. Kansas ends up winning by 18. So you can see how that goes. I'll eat my words. Yeah, for sure. I did not see that coming. But yeah, again, Kansas outplayed UH. They didn't make a bunch of the stupid mistakes that UH made. Again, Dana in his press conference said, stupid crap a bunch of times again. Unsportsmanlike conducts, holdings, things to negate things. UH, the lack of discipline that they've shown the first 2 weeks was still there today. Kansas didn't make those same mistakes. And missed tackles, I mean, credit Kansas's quarterback, Jalen Daniels. He was really good, and he seems like the real deal. But, I mean, UH defense just made it far too easy for him. They didn't present any challenge for him. So, yeah, once we got to that rain delay, I felt the momentum was shifting. I didn't think it would get that far out of hand for UH. I thought it'd still be a competitive game, but didn't turn out that way. And credit Kansas, they took the momentum and never gave it back, and they're now 3-0.
And let me say, because James, you were correct, made a great point. Kansas made adjustments, in-game adjustments. The Cougs, we didn't see any adjustments from them. Everybody's asking now, can the Cougs beat Rice? We think so. We hope so. But
now,
who knows? The way things are. But my main point about all this is, yes, Coach Holgorsen, it's on me. He said he was out coached. KU out coached him. I played him, all those kind of things. Guys, this is 3 games in. He said the same thing. Dumb crap. Doing stupid stuff. It's 3 games in, Coach. When are you going to make changes to the personnel to stop playing guys who make the same dumb crap? Okay, you're the coach. You're in charge. At some point, you need to play somebody else and see if those new players don't make those same dumb mistakes.
I will say this, Chris. I think when you're 3 games in, like if you make an overhaul of like your players and stuff, that might not be like the best idea potentially. I know you got to make changes for sure. Like I agree with that, but I wouldn't say like, for example, like Clayton Tune. Like if you I don't know who the backup quarterback is right now, or like who's considered the second string, but that's like a lot of fans, they have an issue with how Clayton Tune has been playing the last 2 games. I don't think the solution is for him to get benched. That's just my personal opinion, because he still is a 5th-year quarterback. He still has that, he has a lot of experience under his belt, but definitely changes have to be made. Like I agree with that for sure, but I don't think it's a matter of too much about personnel. Like at this point.
I'm not asking for. I hope it's not a massive overhaul. If it's the same guy every week making the same mistakes, sit him down. Mm-hmm. If the O-line needs help, you need to make changes to the O-line. You got to do something, because the O-line just has not been consistent these first 3 games, and that is a concern. Coach Holgorsen said it. if the Cougs don't get a consistent O-line production, it's going to be a long season. Well, we're three games in on the way to being a long season.
And
If
adding on,
real quickly, we got to put a pin on it because we have to give shout out to 5-Star Properties. Once again, they are a Dallas-based company owned by a UH alum, and our guy Jay wants you to know that if you are in the Dallas area and you are looking to sell your house, whether it's just recently suffered flood damage, fire damage, or anything else that has you needing to sell your home in the Dallas area, you got to go and call 5-Star Properties at 972-532-7355. Once again, that's 972-532-7355, and also be sure to visit them at www.5starprops.com. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. That's 5starproperties.com.
Andy, James, question for you too. What happened to the tight end?
I mean, Christian Trahan, yeah, he's been one of the key guys for Clayton Tune past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many catches he has this season, but he has not been a part of the game plan offensively at all. And he made big plays for the offense the past 2 seasons. I don't know. Daniel was talking about all the receivers, the talent they have there, but we still haven't seen that on full display other than Tank Dell. I mean, Joseph Manjack had his moment against UTSA.
Matt Golden's had moments.
Matt Golden's had some nice moments, but we haven't seen that where it's like, just been wowed with the receiving core. And so, I mean, that's where you say, like, why not utilize Christian Trahan more? He's been really reliable and consistent. But no, they haven't been drawing up plays to get him open, or Tune hasn't been looking as well. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's definitely something that's concerning for sure.
And for sure, one thing I did want to mention, the attendance, something that was made a big deal by not only us on Folks Talk Sports, but also the administration, Dana Holgerson, leading up to the game on Monday. He called out the UH fans. He said they need to come out, support. For the first time since I believe it's 2018, the Houston cracked the 30,000 seating, so they had over 30,000. At least according to the attendance that they handed out, they had 30,317 people show up for the game, which, again, brutal. That's been a long time since they had 30,000 people. And obviously, of course, the way the game's turned out is not what Houston or any of on the Houston coaching staff wanted the game to go. But I did want to mention that as well. I did want to make one other point, and that's about quarterback Clayton Tune. And something that really stood out towards that third quarter was he just looks uncomfortable. And I don't know if it's with the offensive line play calling or stuff that are designed, but it just looks like, he gets the ball. And it's not, I would say he probably has a good 2-3 seconds to be able to look down the field. But if it's not his primary route, it looks like he's kind of looking for a way to escape with his legs. And give credit to Kansas, give credit to Texas Tech. They've done a good job of being able to limit him from doing damage on the ground game. And he's really struggled the past 2 games to be able to kind of have the big plays, especially when in this game in particular, when Kansas went on their run of 28 unanswered points, he really struggled to be able to kind of, Houston overall as an offense struggled to stop the bleeding and kind of hang in there. And before you knew it, they were down 2 touchdowns again. And that's really, really been a big concern. And I think, Chris, you bring up a great point just in terms of changing things up and getting, whether it be the tight end involved more, maybe trying to spread the wealth around. I think Tajon Henry, that was a good change in this game, just being able to get him more active in the receiving game. I think he finished with 107 yards. He was the leading receiver, and Tajon Henry off the backfield. So that's something that they were able to exploit Kansas in, and it's something that they have to continue. And again, it just goes back. It's been the theme of the season early on, 3 games in, just inconsistency. They have flashes, and they just couldn't put it together. Now, this game was by far the worst from the defensive perspective, just because, like I believe it was James that mentioned, just they didn't have an answer for Jalen Daniels. It looked like Kansas could do whatever they wanted on offense with very little resistance, and completely different from, again, the flashes that we saw on UTSA and Texas Tech, of especially up front on the defensive line, how dominant they can be. And again, honestly, a night and day difference from where they were a year ago.
Did UH have a sack? I can't remember.
No sacks.
Yeah, that's the first time in a long time.
Yep, Kansas is going now 3 straight games without allowing a sack. Kansas, this is not This is not
and that's a
the
credit
Kansas I
to their
grew up with.
program.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a credit to their program. They've turned the corner. Well, I guess Houston can hold it. They didn't let Kansas score 50 points, but they got really close with 48. And I mean, just looking at the stats overall, I mean, Kansas really was able to do whatever it wanted to all game long, and they had over 438 total yards of offense. No interceptions by the Houston defense. Now, like you mentioned, no sacks. And there was a point where they converted on 6 straight third downs that Houston was able to get them in. So, once again, it just drove. I mean, 6 straight drives that ended in a touchdown for Kansas. I mean, that's absurd. And the one drive that didn't end in a touchdown, it was actually a field goal that, I mean, they technically, Kansas, I guess not technically, but they did score a touchdown that was called out back because Kansas called a timeout. So it could have been 7 straight drives that ended in a touchdown. So real struggles by the defense, and they're going to have to clean that up, going against Rice. And when they do start conference play on September 30th, the Tulane team, they're hot. So that's going to be a tough test.
James, Andy, question for you real quick. Was there any comments about the issues fans had getting into the stadium before the game?
No, yeah, just what we've seen on Twitter, but there was no one addressed it in terms of UH personnel.
The administration has to do better. If you want, you ask fans show up. Fans showed up, and you said 30,000 in attendance.
Correct.
But they're waiting outside to get into the stadium because not enough staffers taking tickets. Got to do better.
I was told by 8 of my friends who are students here at UH that the line was just so ridiculous that they only had like 2 security things working, that they just turned around and left because they weren't wanting to stay in. I mean, so that's really bad. Like,
yeah,
you got to make a way to. It's not that many people. Like 40,000 people is not that many compared to other venues. Have no problem getting in 100,000 effectively.
Right. And see, that could have been your friend's first time going to TDECU. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. They may never come back now because of that experience right there. You could have lost those fans. Little things like that, we as an administration continue to drop the ball and shoot ourselves in the foot. And I'm going to put it up. This comment, I don't know if this is a Coug fan or not, but trolling us or whatever. Welcome to the bottom of the Big 12. Until things change, this comment is not wrong. We can talk about in football, of course, talking about, well, we're going to compete for championships. Based on what? Okay, so far we've seen no indication to think the UH football team is ready to compete and win in the Big 12.
I do want to add to that, Chris, and there's a lot of I want to say there's like a lot of parading going around just because we've been invited to the Big 12. I've seen it from Chris Pesman, I've seen it from Randy Couture, and like credit to them for like bringing the university to where it is at right now. That definitely, like, I was a student, I was a freshman 10 years ago, and like there's a big difference from where we were 10 years ago where we are now. But then like right now, I feel like the program itself thinks like we've already accomplished a championship just by getting into the Big 12. And that's got to change for sure. And it's just a little too much showing off, going on. And it's like we haven't accomplished anything yet with the football program.
And now I'll put a
go ahead, Andy. Just
our final ad read of the show. Once again, we'd like to shout out 5 Star Properties. They're the primary sponsor, and really, I personally want to shout them out because the owner reached out to us. He was really the first one to kind of take a chance on us. We had I guess we called it a demo run that we did last year during the NCAA tournament. We did 6 or 7 episodes during the American Athletic Conference run and NCAA tournament runs. We knew we wanted to do it for football season, and it was really big to be able to have a primary sponsor for obviously the first 4 games of the football season. We're going to have a different primary sponsor heading into October, but Jay's already shown interest in once the basketball season rolls around. Let's rage Coogs, not just for football, but also for the men's basketball team come November. So big props to Jay to be able to be the first one to really lead in. And once again, he'd like you to know that if you are in the Dallas area and you want to do business with a Houston alum, part of the University of Houston family, whether it be that you're looking to sell your home for various reasons, whether it has flood damage, it has fire damage, you just want to sell your house for cash, depending on the different circumstances, be sure to call them at 972-532-7355 or visit their website at www.5starprops.com. Once again, they have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, and they are the primary sponsors of the show. Once again, that's 5-Star Properties, www.5starprops.com. Chris, I'll toss it over to you. What were you going to say?
Aqib's leading into one of the points I've made for a little bit now, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, okay? But I've been around a long time. I'm older than all three of you guys. I'm older than most of the people who are tuning in on a YouTube channel. I've covered the Big 12, okay? I've been to Big 12 media functions for years. UH is not ready to handle that side of big-time athletics, okay? So, as I said earlier in our show, we can do a lot of talk. We talk really good. It's time for us to back up that talk with some action and be proactive. You know, the fan issues today, we got to do better than that next Saturday against Rice. Concession stands got to be better. We need to make the experience for fans to come to the games, who take time out of their days to come to their games, make them want to come back. Not give them reason to stay home. And today was a drop the ball.
In all fronts.
And then lost. Laid a big egg, got run over by a Kansas team, which James said was a guaranteed Coogs win. Cover the spread. Put out there, James. You know, it's all love.
Hey, I'll admit that.
Oh yeah, you know, I know you do. You own up to it. But it's just the little things that we continue to do as an administration, as a program, that are hurting ourselves. And then we, on the other side, complain, why don't people support us? Well, at some point, you got to give them reason to support you. And things like today just is not going to get it done. I'm done. Go ahead, James, Andy, Aqib.
Yeah, this is the last thing. Yeah, I just want to say one thing. It's the last comment I make about like the program itself is like, I feel like because of how far our basketball program has come, it's like we're just holding on to that and just like rolling with that. And like I feel like the football program, maybe a couple other programs are just maybe not the other programs, but like the football program specifically is kind of like they're feeling comfortable, maybe because of how far our basketball program has come. And like you can't even compare the two in terms of accomplishments. It's not even close. Like we haven't even won the American since when?
2015.
2015.
Yeah. 2015. So like in the last 6-7 years, like nothing has been done. We had a great season last year, but that still ended up with us not winning a championship. So
yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the men's basketball team because honestly they might have been the highlight of the game because I think it was around the 8-minute mark in the first quarter they got recognized last year for their Elite 8 run in the American Athletic Conference championship that they won and for the 2021-22 season. So obviously I say that in jest, but there was a lot of people on Twitter that commented that, especially once the rail started to fall off the football train and they had gotten down double digits. That was something even at halftime. Once again, second, and that's the thing where I get it and kudos because I'll preface it by the first two games at UTSA in the Alamo Dome, at Texas Tech. Yeah, they're probably tough environments to go play in, but now 3 straight games, albeit Kansas it looks like they're heading on the right track. They're much more improved, but you can't be down 2 touchdowns in all 3 of the games, especially in the home opener, especially after the great start that you had. And again, just going back to something that we've hammered, they could very easily be 0-3 if UTSA, that game comes out differently. And that's not a point in the program where you want to be. And again, to reiterate, what I said when I first hopped on, now Horace is going to fall to 0-4 against Big 12 teams since he's been here in Houston, and that just doesn't instill confidence in the fan base. And I think it's once again there was a lot of kind of buzz heading into the season because of what they did accomplish last year, 12-2. They got to the American Athletic Conference championship game, were beaten by Cincinnati, and then they won the Birmingham Bowl. That's kind of been really tossed out the window a little bit just in terms of the momentum that was around this program. They hit 30,000 today. I'd be surprised if they hit it again for the rest of the season, to be quite frank.
Yeah. And sort of going off that, like Holgerson's record against Big 12 teams and stuff, I would argue that he still hasn't gotten that marquee win as the UH coach. You can look at the Auburn game, but Auburn, yeah, they're an SEC team.
Yeah.
But they're not the same team with Cam Newton and Greg Marshall, the power years. They've been on the decline for a little while. They're still a decent team, but I wouldn't say that's a marquee win. And I mean, every Big 12 opportunity,
SMU.
falling short. SMU, I mean, it's an American.
That's the only one.
But see, that's where the bar is. Think about that. That's where the bar is for Coach Holgerson in football at UH. Beating an average at best Auburn team is the marquee win for him so far. I mean, that's not impressive at all. You know, but I don't know.
To me, he hasn't proved anything yet. Like, even when he was hired from West Virginia, I think with West Virginia, he had what was his name? That quarterback,
Will Grier.
Will Grier, who played very well. But like outside of him, he didn't accomplish anything really. Even as a coach who was already coaching in the Big 12, he hadn't accomplished much there. So I think we kind of just, because that coaching availability was that position was open and we hired him, and because he still had that name as a Big 12 coach, like it still looked good for our program. But like even up until now, like I haven't seen much as an accomplishment. It's been just one season, maybe he's done well, if that. But we still have like a lot to see from him. And if we end up losing next week against a Rice team that we have been dominating for years, like then you're probably going to start thinking about, you know, coaching personnel and if changes need to be made.
Well, Aqib, I'll ask you because we touched on it with Andy and James on Sunday in Folks Talking Sports. Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask you, if the Cougs, and I still think it'd be a surprise, if this team goes 5-7 this season, do you think UH has the money, a wealthy alum, boost or whatever, to say Dana is not the answer for us in the Big 12? We need to make a change. If the wheels fall off and the Cougs finish with a losing record this season, do you think UH has somebody who would do that?
I think we've moved in that direction to where people are, you know, we have generous donors right now. I think they recently got like a big donation, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember what the number was. Yeah. So like, so I'm not, I don't know what the contract situation is though. So with,
that's the thing. Again, off of last season, I believe his contract was originally, James, correct me if I'm wrong, I think his original deal was a 5-year, $20 million, or was it 4-year, $20 million? I get confused with the 5. I believe it was 5.
I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure it was 5.
Yeah.
But following
a couple comments here. Doug Belk's defense, 3 games in a row, has not looked good. Okay. And this comment is where I'm leading to right here from J.A. Cooper 9. Big time programs pay buyouts.
Yeah. And
well, I agree with that, but I'm not sure who that would be at Houston.
It would have to be probably Tillman Fertitta or the person that anonymously donated $10 million. But it's going to be in a really tough spot. And I mean, the players were asked about it by a couple of reporters today. You know, do they see this as a turning point? Again, like I mentioned about Derek Parrish, to his credit, he gave a good answer. He said that their goals are still ahead of them, and that's primarily winning the American Athletic Conference Championship. And now it's going to be about, you know, going out there and actually proving it, because at this point, I don't think the fan base has confidence in them to be able to go out to do that. So they're going to have to silence the doubters.
And I'm going to be messy. Be messy, Aqib.
Yeah.
What if the Cougs go 8-4? President Tour said he inspired coaches to go 8-4. Well, if they go 8-4 with this weak ass schedule, I'm saying, I mean, at some point, either he's the answer or he's not. And I don't believe he is. And I've been consistent in that. Okay. These 2 losses, I mean, Kansas dominated the Cougs today. Who would have thought that? Okay, Kansas football. Okay, not Kansas basketball. Kansas football dominated the Cougs today.
I think in front of the commissioner too, right? The Big 12.
No,
he didn't end up making
I
the
guess
trip.
He didn't make it, thank goodness. He
they're
didn't make
lucky
it.
he was
make
not
it.
able to get in here.
Because
He would have had to sit through a 69-minute delay. He would have had to see Kansas run amok of one of their new programs. It probably wouldn't have done Houston a lot of favor.
the good thing is we're officially set to join the Big 12. That's the good part. The bad part is we haven't, earned that right. In as long as as far as the football program goes, I don't think we've earned that right just yet. So I know we waited so long to join a Power 5 conference, but it's just I feel like there's like I said before earlier in the show, there's too much parading going on and not enough actual work. And I did check it up. I think it's 4 years, 18.2 million for the extension. So if we end up having a bad season, not even getting a bowl game, and even getting a bowl game, I don't think that's a big accomplishment this year because of our expectations. But if you do end up letting go of Holgerson, that's going to be a huge buyout for sure early in his contract extension. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of good coaching candidates out there that would love to join a team heading into the Big 12. So I'm not going to just dismiss that altogether of like firing him. That's still a possibility.
Ooh,
Well,
I doubt it. I
You
hope
don't think
so, but I doubt it.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Well,
Andy. I'm sorry.
no, I'm just gonna say we're gonna transition now to Rice as we wrap things up here for Let's Rage Cougs. Once again, the final score: Houston loses or Kansas wins, rather 48-30. Kansas, they had a point where they scored 28 unanswered points after Houston jumped out to take a 14-0 lead, and from that point, Houston was outscored 48-16 after jumping out early, and really were just limited all around. Not even limited. They were unable to limit Kansas on the defensive side of the ball, which going back to the comment that one of our commenters, one of our YouTube watchers posted about Doug Belk, I think it's absolutely a criticism that warranted. It certainly has to be a conversation, just in terms of how they've really struggled in all three games. In the UTSA game, in the Texas Tech game, they were unable to hold off both of those teams, and they allowed the game time drive. Both they got the games into overtime, and even then, once again, they're going back to the 4th and 20 against Texas Tech. I mean, honestly, that might end up being the play that defines the season if the defense gets to stop there. They're 2-0. They have all the momentum. They come in here. I'd be pretty confident that they would have had more than 30,000 people packing into the stadium, which might be a good thing, might be a bad thing, depending on if they were able to get in. I mean, shoot, if they get 4th and 20, maybe it doesn't rain and it's sunny the whole time. But the way it ended, I mean, the weather kind of showed where the program is right now. And kind of a funny tidbit, during the fourth quarter, whenever the wheels had come off, it was obviously Kansas is going to win. People had started headed for the exits, and TDECU Stadium started playing All Aboard the Crazy Train, which of course, one of the lyrics says that the rails are falling off on the crazy train. Just seemed to be the perfect type of song for the way the program was. But transitioning over, we're going to look ahead at Rice. Obviously, of course, Houston falls to 1-2. Kansas improves to 3-0. And once again, give props to Kansas for that offense. Jalen Daniels, man, he's the real deal. He does it with his legs, with his feet. He did it. He had a couple of good passes. He had 5 total touchdowns, both on the ground. And I think he had 2 rushing touchdowns. Make sure he had 3 passing touchdowns and he had 2 rushing touchdowns. So he did it all for Kansas. And from the Houston perspective, obviously, of course, they're going to play Rice for the Bayou Bucket, which Dana Holgerson said they're going to be playing for a trophy. So that's something they kind of use to kind of add extra drama, for lack of a better phrase, for that game. But I'm going to go around the table. James, I'll go to you first. But what do you think Houston needs to clean up in their match against Rice?
It goes back to just the fundamentals of football. Tackling, can't miss tackles. That's still been a big issue. Not making stupid penalties, like I understand certain penalties, but especially the, unsportsmanlike conducts, those are unacceptable penalties. I understand the occasional, holding, pass interference, whatever, but like they need to cut down on those too. But the disciplinary penalties that they can control, they need to cut down on that. I'm just looking for them to play a clean, fundamentally sound game of football. where they're the same team for 60 minutes. They're not, look like a top 25 team like they did for the first 10 minutes and then look like they don't even belong anywhere near the Big 12 for the last 50 minutes of the game. So those are my big three things.
Aqib?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, I mean, there's a lot of X's and O's stuff you can talk about on both sides of the ball, defense and offense, but I'll just keep it short. Dana Holgorsen just has to start becoming a leader of this team, get a hold of his guys, because like James said, like the unsportsmanlike conduct, like those kind of penalties, that's going back all the way to the UTSA game, and it's like 3 games in a row, like. And these guys supposedly are supposed to be grown men, 20 plus years old.
That was
so,
one of the things that was touted for this team heading into the season, how old they were. I think the average age was like 22 and a half.
Yeah, so like that's probably the thing I'd emphasize most is these guys need to start being more coachable, and the coaching staff has to start doing a better job just coaching and then holding their guys accountable.
And Chris?
We're going to see, based on the numbers that he's putting up tonight against Louisiana, TJ McMahon, quarterback for Rice, he's not a mobile quarterback. He's not a runner. So that should help UH's defense because they can't handle a mobile quarterback. But he's passing. He's 17 to 27 tonight. So if he's just a pocket passer, that may help the Cougs defense and discipline, and maybe we'll just see how they do tackling-wise against Rice. But the wheels are falling off. The 1-2 going into a game against Rice. I have so much respect for Chris Pesman, but I don't understand the need or desire to play Rice every year because revenue-wise, it's just not there. Rice fans don't come see their team play. Houston fans only come see the Cougs play when they win. So to make this an annual matchup intentionally, non-conference, just makes no sense to me money-wise.
Chris, it seemed like it's going to be here to stay even when Houston gets into the Big 12. Those were the comments he said about a week and a half ago when Houston unveiled the extension with the TDECU Stadium extension that'll now last for through 2034 with the option of 5 additional years after that. So Houston Rice might be a long-term thing that's here to stay. From my perspective, I think James hit it right on the head, and that's just consistency, something that this program, this team has just not been able to do early on in the season, both on the defensive side of things and on the offensive side of things. That's really been the thing. They haven't been able to be in sync for the season. That cost them against Texas Tech. It's why they had to go to overtime against UTSA. And the defense really let go of the rope against Kansas, but that's one of the other things that they weren't able to stop the Jayhawks today. So I think that's going to be the key. And again, like you mentioned, against Rice, they were not a 9.5-point favorite heading into this game against Kansas. I'd imagine they should be over a double-digit favorite heading into that Rice game. James, I don't want to put you on the spot. We'll come to you tomorrow for Folks Talking Sports. So for those of you that are watching on YouTube or any of the other platforms, be sure to check out Folks Talking Sports tomorrow. But I think that's got to be a consistency. How does this program respond? Because it's going to be crucial. I mean, like you said, if they lose to Rice, I think that's going to cause a seismic shift. And I don't think they should lose to Rice. Obviously, they're much more talented. They should honestly, the score should look similar to when they played Rice last season. I believe it was 45 to little. Rice didn't get past. I can't remember if they scored a touchdown or if they were shut out, but they were really constricted by the Houston defense. It's a get right game, and they need to get right. And right now, there's not even a lot of confidence with that. We're looking at the comments. There's a lot of people that are saying, let's see what happens against Rice. They have to get in sync, and they have to steer the ship.
Andy, you touched on it. What did Coach Holgorsen say regarding Manjack and Brown?
Yeah, James, I'll let you toss in there and fill in any of the stuff that I missed. But essentially, again, it went back to stupid crap that Holgorsen has mentioned for the past 2 weeks. I believe that what Dana Holgorsen said, it was Brown had allowed himself to get to allow one of the Kansas players to get under his skin. He was really ticked off about a play which led to the unsportsmanlike conduct for both Kansas and Houston. Manjack that saw that from Holgorsen's explanation, he obviously said that the message had been to limit stupid crap. So Manjack kind of took it upon himself to correct Brown that that's not what they're supposed to do. That led to a conflict between Brown and Manjack, and then on the sidelines we saw the video. It wasn't clear where Manjack was coming from. He was coming off the field, but they started to get into it, and then that was pretty much the gist that Hoverson said. It's something that he said it was unacceptable from both players just in terms of how it handled, but long story short, it was Manjack trying to correct Brown for what he allowed the Kansas player to get under his skin. And James, you can fill in anything that I might have missed.
No, that was basically it. The one thing like I would add is just Holgerson, while he was not, he said, Manjack, he was in the wrong. He did say, he did appreciate the type of leadership. Like he sees the leader in Manjack. Obviously, that's not the way to deal with it with your teammates. Go shove him and fight on the sideline. Like that's not the right way. But he did appreciate the, taking accountability for, just not wanting to stand for a stupid thing like an unsportsmanlike conduct.
And once again, it just goes back to too many stupid crap that what Holgerson's mentioned since the UTSA game. I don't think he necessarily used crap after that game, but again, too many mistakes, too many dumb errors, and then that's what he used after the Texas Tech game, and he followed up again. So against Rice, let's see if they can clean that up. That's going to be key, but that's going to do it for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs. So if you haven't done so already, please be sure to, depending on where you're listening to this, if you're listening to this on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel live, be sure to give Chris a follow on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel. Thank you to him for allowing us to use his platform. Once again, thank you to 5 Star Properties for being the primary sponsor. And one final time, if you're in the Dallas area and you're looking to sell your home, be sure to contact them at 972-532-SELL. That's for the number version at 7355. Once again, 972-532-7355. That's www.5starprops.com. James, I'm going to toss it over to you. Where can people find you and your work, sir?
Yeah, once again, thanks for having me on. You can find me on Twitter at JDM2186, and then my work is on thedailycougar.com.
And Aqib?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Aqib Gazi MMA.
Chris?
I just want to give props to Andy and James for Aqib. Of course, we've been on the show today from the beginning, but Andy and James at TDECU Stadium. Andy's on the field. I'm not sure where James is, in the locker room or somewhere.
I'm in my dorm.
You're in your dorm.
It's right across the field from the state. Or it's right across the street from the state.
So we're not that far, but yeah.
but these two guys are just proving what we've said for a while. The technology exists to allow us to do a show like this platform that we have.
The platform is there, and we're not going anywhere. We'll be sticking around once the men's basketball season goes. And hopefully we'd like to hear more from you guys. Thank you to everyone that took time to comment. We'd like to hear more guests to have them on the show. This is the vision for this show is to provide a platform for UH fans that they don't have. You don't, after Rocket Texans game, Astros games, they have a post-game show people can call in. This is filling that need for U of H until who knows how long we can take it. We're not going to put a cap on it. And obviously, of course, it's a bummer that Houston lost once again. The final score 48-30 to Kansas. But they are transitioning over to the Big 12, and we're not going anywhere. They won't fire us because unless Chris decides to fire us. Chris, do not fire us, please.
You got a comment from CD, who's I think a Jayhawk fan. He likes what we're doing. Stick with the CD because when basketball season starts, and then Coogs in the Big 12.
That's going to be the big prize right there. Absolutely. And like you said, we're on the field, James. We were both at the stadium, so we're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to provide that instant access to have that forum. We're at the post-game availabilities. We're at the weekly conferences leading up to the game. So we're not just random people screaming on the internet. We're here. We're in the trenches with all the post-game availabilities, and just stay with us.
So thank you very much. Was that In Orbiter right there for those kind words right there? We appreciate it, and we're going to try to do better the next show. This has been fun, guys. Thank you.
So again, thanks everyone.
Take care.